Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Getting geeky in Little Rock. It's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for listening, whether you're listening to the live show at 1 p.m. Central on April 13th in the Little Rock, Central Arkansas area, or if you're listening via the online stream at 101.1 FM, theanswer.com. Just so glad to have you. There's also, the podcast version, which goes out after the fact, and Krypton Radio and YouTube, and there's all these other places. So this is both a live radio show, usually a live radio show. Last couple of weeks have been pre-recorded, and also a podcast. And this past week, for example, the podcast version actually had about an hour extra content. So that it's not usually that extreme, the differences, but it can happen. So anyway, there's just a lot of different ways to listen to the show. And this is Geek Talk Radio. It is it's like political talk radio, or it's, hey, I want to fix my car talk radio, or religious talk radio, but it's geek stuff. If it's geeky, it goes. So that's kind of how it is. So, and I love doing live radio because you never know what's going to happen. Like today has been kind of fun. Zach and I both had some interesting challenges to be ready. So I would say I'm mostly ready. Just like the Dread Pirate Wesley was mostly dead in The Princess Bride, but I'm mostly ready. Let's make this happen. I've got today returning to the show. I think, man, this is either I think this is the third live appearance. And I think another time I played a pre-recorded interview. But anyway, we got Mike Myler returning to the show today. And we are going to be talking, the main topic is converting historical and or mythological figures to D&D 5e. And Mike has a lot of experience with that. Not only does he often post conversions on his own website, but he posts them on EN World, Morris's EN World, which is probably the biggest online tabletop RPG resource I know of. And so we're going to talk today. I thought it'd be neat for him to step us through how he does that. And he's going to actually step us through the process of Genghis Khan, of converting Genghis Khan to a D&D 5e character. And then hopefully, if we have time, we're going to look at one he's already done, which is on the EN World site. And I'll hold that one in reserve. But just think of somebody that is quite different from Genghis Khan, ability-wise and stuff like that. So we wanted to kind of contrast things. So, Mike, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk.
Hey, thanks again for having me. And hello, Arkansas.
Hello, Arkansas and the world. So, and I threw the link to the live stream in on the Discord that we hang out in over at Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG talk Discord.
The EN World
Discord. So, so maybe some people, if anybody's listening in there, if they want to give us a shout out or interact with the show, I'll try to keep an eye on that. Folks, I also I do try to keep an eye on Twitter. So sometimes people will tweet during the live show. Sometimes I miss it, but I do try to keep an eye on it. And that's Shane Plays, ShanePlays. So Twitter at Shane Plays, or you can call in. This is Live Talk Radio at 501-823-0965. So, Mike, before we get into all of the our main topic today, wanted you to, get a chance to update us on a couple of things. And then also we'll have a little RPG D&D news, but then we'll dig into, I think it's fascinating to how do you take, a famous mythological or historical figure and then codify them into a set of rules, so, I don't know anybody who does it as much as you do. So this is going to be really good. So before we get into all that, wanted to give you the opportunity to remind people about the Ian World Insider if you wanted to.
Yeah, I've been game designing full-time as a freelancer for like 6 years now, and I spent the past year as the editor for Insider, which is a Patreon, which is kind of like a periodical. You pay so many dollars up to your, you decide how many dollars you want to pay per article, release 5 a month. Most people pay $5 a month, and then you get access. As soon as you join, you get access to the archive of now 265 plus articles.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's an insanely good deal. So yeah, I'm always trying to rep it because it's, people join up and then they'll stay a member for a couple of months until they've downloaded everything.
Right.
And then they, come back later after, however long a time. So I just got to keep telling folks about it and keep the membership strong. Right now we're at, I think, almost 1,100 people are patrons. It's a lot of people.
That's fantastic. So,
yeah.
And is your, even with, because some people they'll be like, I'll take the free stream for a week and watch everything and then not sign up. But, and then that, whatever. I mean, that's legit, if not the exact purpose of Patreon and site. But even with people doing that, would you say that you're trending upwards on membership?
There has been a steady downward trend since like a year before I became editor, and I finally figured out how to stop that.
Yay!
Like just this month. Yeah, I'm unbelievably happy about
Mike Myler, don't play. So, all right.
And, you're welcome to come in and pop in and leave after a month. A lot of people do, but it takes, I downloaded all the articles the other week and made a list and stuff so it's easier for people to access. And it takes like 3 hours to download them all.
Wow.
So,
yeah. So it's okay.
Well, I mean, you downloaded 265,
Yeah. Okay. Well, and like I said, it's not technically wrong to do that. But I'm just saying most people that do a Patreon is they're looking for ongoing support to keep things going. So I have some Patreon supporters. It's by no means the main support for the show, but it adds up over time. And I appreciate it so much because this is not a podcast first. It costs a little bit to do the show. And that even small Patreon support over months and years starts adding up into hundreds of dollars. So I do appreciate it. So what's going on with, you got anything going on with Mist of Akuma?
Yes. I finished this big adventure path book called Trade War. It's like 400 pages. If you're into Eastern fantasy, it is directly up your alley. If you just look up Trade War D&D 5e, it should come up pretty quick. Let me see. I've got another setting that's going to kickstart in a little while. That's like a Conan type thing.
Okay, so it's not for Mist of Akuma. It's
no. The next thing will be called Vast Kavya. And then, before that, Insider will have a Kickstarter for a Touch More class, which collects 9 classes that we released in the past year, and puts them in like a snazzy book. Okay, so what I like. Morris has already changed his Twitter nickname, something along those lines. So when does that Kickstarter go live? Well, we've got everything written and like the page is ready. The layout guy has to proof it because the way that Ian World does Kickstarters is they finish everything before they even run the Kickstarter. So as soon as the Kickstarter is over, they send out rewards. Right? Okay. So I think we're shooting for before June. But I don't have a firm date. That's my boss.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I've noticed a couple of things mentioned about that. I've been so busy the last couple of days. I haven't even seen the Star Wars teaser trailer yet. So I'm like, I haven't had time to go look and see, if that's live, but it's coming. So that'll be new classes for 5e specifically from the E-Insider. Yeah. E-Insider. Okay. Very good. So, and I will link to the E-Insider in the show notes for the podcast and Krypton radio version of the show. I have show notes up. So if you're listening to that, you can go to shaneplays.com and get the show notes. So, all right. I want to take a moment and talk about a project I'm working on. I don't often do that, but I do want to make sure people know about this. That, I cover tabletop role-playing games. I cover computer role-playing games. I cover comic books, movies, whatever. It's a wide range of topics I cover, but 2 of my main passions are tabletop role-playing games and computer role-playing games. And I've been blessed to be allowed to ride shotgun with my friend Matt Barton of Matt Chat, who's doing incredibly important work out there in interviewing and documenting the history of computer role-playing games and interviews with the developers and that sort of thing. And he's got a book that I discovered him through this book, and I think other people did too. It's called Dungeons and Desktops, The History of Computer Role-Playing Games. Well, it's been 10 years since that book came out, and we recently, well, not recently, about a year ago, talked about updating it to second edition, and that happened. So the book is officially for pre-order on Amazon.com right now. There'll be a link on the show notes, but just search for Dungeons and Desktops, the history of computer role-playing games or whatever on Amazon, and you'll find it. You can pre-order it right now. It releases on May 12th, and it's what Dungeons and Desktops was, but we've revised content, we've updated content, we've fixed things that needed to be fixed from the first one. All of the images and screenshots are in color, and we've also updated it to reflect what's happened in the past 10 years of computer role-playing games. So, we have the what we call the Kickstarter Renaissance and other things, and then we kind of have a Matt. I didn't write this. Matt did. I can't take credit for this. There's a bestiary in the back, which is an appendix that lists all the games out there, kind of like the old, those like Leonard Maltin movie guides, where it's just a short summary of like all of the movies out there. Matt has done that for computer role playing games, so it's really cool. Anyway, so check out Dungeons and Desktops: The History of Computer Role Playing Games, second edition, on Amazon. Like I said, it's available for pre-order now, and it will come out on May 12th. So, Mike, do you play any computer role playing games? I know. Sometimes that's an overlapping interest for RPG guys. Sometimes it's not.
Oh yeah, whenever I get the chance, I'm a huge. I love Neverwinter Nights to death, and Kingmaker is really good if you haven't played.
I have played Kingmaker. I think it's fantastic, and I saw they did some sort of update. Like I know that there's some DLC or something, and I haven't had a chance to look at it. I was actually I don't know how it happened. They reached out to me and asked me to. Do the alpha, and then that brought me into the beta, and it's a fantastic game. Very impressed with it. And for people who don't know, that's the first, I would say, real conversion of the Pathfinder role playing game to a one player computer role playing game, and it adapts the Kingmaker adventure path, which is very popular. So
it's not related to I think Goblin Stone or the people who make the Pathfinder MMO. Totally unrelated project.
Completely unrelated, and there's also like a digital Pathfinder card game out there, like Pathfinder Adventures. It's not related to that either, and it I've really enjoyed it, and we talk about Pathfinder Kingmaker. In the updated second edition of Dungeons and Desktops. And one of the things I brought to the book that Matt Barton doesn't have, he doesn't have a real strong tabletop role-playing background. So in several instances, I was able to add content or strengthen the connection between, role-playing games and computer role-playing games. So that was, and a lot of people know this, a lot of people don't. There's a strong connection between GURPS and Fallout that a lot of people aren't aware of. So especially, towards the beginning when they were first figuring out the game engine for the first Fallout. So anyway, I'm going to give out a couple of, I'm going to do a PSA here and then a short note for a sponsor. And then we're going to banter with Zach a little bit and then do some D&D RPG news. So actually I might do the news before I don't know. Zach, are you in a bantering mood today?
I'm always.
You're always in a bantering mood. Okay, well, let me throw this stuff out real quick. What time we got? Okay, checking the old time. Got to get used to doing this live again after the past 2 or 3 weeks. All right, so Heroes and Angels Comic-Con. Heroes and Angels Comic-Con 2019 is going to be Saturday, April 27th, 2019, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Woody Sherwood Forest. So admission is just $3. And Heroes and Angels provides non-medical assistance to families affected by childhood cancer and to military families in need. It also provides funding to organizations that research the causes and cures of childhood cancer. Heroes and Angels Comic-Con is their biggest fundraiser of the year. So come on out Saturday, April 27th, 2019, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Sherwood Forest, and it's just $3. So, I hope folks out there take advantage of a good geeky time that also helps kids and their families. Now, this is for a sponsor. I've cross-promoted with Arkansas RPG Con since they began, and we are entering our third year. Arkansas RPG Con registrations are now open. Head on over to Arkansas or arpgcon.com for Arkansas RPG Con 2019, which will be November 9th and 10th. This 2-day event is first year that it's been 2 days. This 2-day event's early bird badge is only $20, which is the same as last year's 1-day event badge. So get them now before those prices raise to $30 on July 1st. Get on over to arpgcon.com. I'll tell you what, Zach, let's I'm going to do some news with Mike, and then we'll banter with you, because it's a little bit different today. We have like a 3.5 minute pre-recorded thing. So I don't want to leave Mike swinging in the wind there too long. So let's go ahead, turn on the microphone in the super secret newsroom there. Whoop. There we go. What do you know? Working hard on a Saturday, man. Zach, I've never seen Sal so happy. Miss Pennyfingers seems to be. Have you still not met her?
I still haven't.
All right. Well, he seems to be making her happy. She seems to be an amazing employee. And the Mobley Detective Agency has no updates on Muffin, so we don't know what's going on there. He's just lying low or something. Or maybe we were wrong. Maybe he was totally innocent. I have no idea. People don't know. Not Sal, the head of the news team, but his grandmother and her dog Muffin, they get really upset if I don't banter with Zach. So we've had an ongoing thing, but it seems to have leveled off. So we're glad about that. We want peace. So for a little bit of news here, I haven't really had a chance to talk about this on the show, but this is really important. I think not only for the D&D community, the role-playing community, but also crowdfunding in general, entertainment in general, all of that. So, Mike, what do you think about what's going on with Critical Role's The Legend of Vox Machina animated special? What?
I thought you were going to talk about that Cthulhu print run that got pulped.
Oh, yeah, no, I could have, but yeah, we can mention that briefly. There was a couple of weeks ago in China, there was a print run of
Which is where most game books get printed, by the way. If
right.
you're buying like a Paizo book or a D&D book or like a major publisher, it's probably printed in China.
Right. So something happened where this Cthulhu source book somehow talked in
China.
Yeah, it was set in China, and it talked about Shanghai or Beijing or one of the major cities, but evidently is well researched and it wasn't negative. But for some reason, the Chinese authorities didn't like it, and they burnt the entire shipment before it went out. So, do you have any more details than that? Like what might have triggered them there?
They reimbursed the guys, so like they're not totally screwed, right? They can take it
right.
to another printer.
Okay.
But like it's more just a really dangerous reminder about like how we should not be outsourcing the production of so much media to a country with,
right.
media controls.
Yeah, and I'm not here to get into a political discussion of types of government versus other types of government, but China, as much as it's becoming a world power and all that, it is not a democratic republic like we are, right? It's a whole different situation over there. So and the government can step in and take action that they feel they need to take. So yeah, I think that, well, for not only for that reason, Mike, but also just to bring, more RPG related opportunities, just in other places. I think it would be good for when you put all your eggs in one basket, and a lot of manufacturing eggs are in one basket for China because they have built the infrastructure and made themselves available, it can cause problems. So anyway, yeah, I am glad to hear that the guys got reimbursed. I didn't know about that. And it wasn't Chaosium. It was a third party.
Yeah, it was another outfit.
Okay. So, but what do you think about this Legend of Vox Machina thing.
I don't know. They're past 8 million now.
It is ridiculous. Yeah. So I am surprised, even knowing how big Critical Role is. I'm super surprised by this Kickstarter. It blew up to like $5 million on the first day, or something ridiculous like that. But Critical Role, who of course is very popular, they live stream D&D and they're voice actors and they're very entertaining. Matt Mercer and all those guys. They kickstarted, and it's not even a RPG product or D&D. It's an animated special. So they're basically making a RPG cartoon. They asked for $750,000, and as of today, they're up to over $9,600,000 on a $750,000 goal. There's still 5 days left. It ends on April 19th at basically 2 a.m. Central, and it has over 70,000 backers. It's amazing. I mean, I knew Critical Role was big, but this is even, to me, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize they were that big. So, and Critical Role is not my cup of tea. I don't dislike them, but it's just not, I don't watch it. But a lot of people out there love it, and so good for them. That is amazing. So did you happen to back this, Mike, by any chance? Are you interested in this product?
No, I don't really do actual plays and stuff.
Yeah, it's not really my thing, but a lot of people are way into it. So, and there's some statistic out there where D&D is saying that, I mean, it's a huge amount of new players are coming in because they're seeing live streams. So, yep. So, I was going to talk about the D&D selfie, but I don't want to spend any more time on the news. I want to make sure to give you time to step us through what you're going to step us through. But there is the D&D selfie hashtag out there. And it started because of a Saturday Night Live segment.
I thought it was a funny skit, man. I think this is ridiculous. That was a funny skit. I laughed at it.
Right.
Moved on. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, everyone's different. I was just going to encourage people to, it's healthy to be able to laugh at yourself on a certain level. And Saturday Night Live does not celebrate people. They lampoon people, right? Yeah. And the very fact that your subculture or whatever, your hobby, gets an entire skit on Saturday Night Live, all it means, it's a compliment. You've made it. They don't do that unless you're big. So I would just encourage people to think about it from that perspective and not see it, as an insult or something like that. That's how I see it anyway. All right. So moving on, that's a little bit of news, not a lot, but I haven't had a RPG news segment in a while. So I wanted to get a little bit of news out there. I'm gonna banter with Zach so that I don't get myself in trouble with Sal's grandmother and her dog Muffin. And today's gonna be a little bit different because the last banter we left it on a cliffhanger, right? So today's gonna be a little bit different. We're gonna play the rest of it. But Zach, how the heck are you, buddy?
I'm doing great.
You're doing great. You're producing another show right before mine now.
I am.
Yep. So it's fun.
Yes, it is.
It's crazy. You're like running out of there and running into here and pushing buttons and all kinds of craziness. So thanks for all your hard work. Mm-hmm. I just want to let you know, no, I have not. As I said earlier, I haven't seen the Star Wars teaser trailer.
Shocked because I sent it to you yesterday morning.
I know. I haven't had a chance.
Uh-huh.
I haven't. I mean, I've seen it. I know already the shocking thing at the end.
Yeah.
Because, the internet can't shut up.
Exactly.
Right?
Someone texted me about that.
Yeah.
So
it's like, really? People, remember. But anyway, it's human nature. What are you going to do? So I know that Jar Jar's in it. I know the big surprise. Misa.
Oh, God.
Misa, the Skywalker rising.
Goodness gracious.
The Rise of Skywalker is the name of the movie. So anyway, last show, Zach and I were talking about Captain Marvel and what we thought of the movie and then we started getting into theories about Avengers Endgame, which is 2 weeks from now?
Yes,
Something
it
like
is.
that?
2
yeah.
weeks.
So, and we were just starting to talk about that, and I was like, oh, we're out of time. So we left it on a cliffhanger on what our thoughts were. So Zach, let's play that to be good fellas and not leave people hanging. Let's play the remainder of that banter that we recorded a couple of weeks ago, and let people, because I know they're waiting with bated breath to know what our thoughts are. Right? They haven't been able to sleep since then. So let's go ahead and play that.
We've talked before that it's very likely that Ant-Man being in the quantum realm
Yes.
somehow throws things off because maybe the snap didn't affect him.
Exactly. That's what I
maybe
believe.
maybe Thanos didn't sense him or whatever, and then he comes back as a potential wild card.
Yep.
Here's another wild card. How did Carol Danvers get her powers?
Well, it's because she was next near that ship basically that blew up. And
Right, but where did that ship get its power?
Oh, that's right.
The Tesseract.
Yes.
And the Tesseract has one of the Infinity Stones in it.
That is right.
So it's possible that her being Infinity Stone power, that's her power source. She's connected with that Infinity Stone on some level, could throw a wrench into Thanos.
That is true. And plus, which the blue Infinity Stone, which one does that represent?
I'd have to look it up. I looked it up the other day and I forgot. And then I don't have my phone actually, let me get on my phone. I'm thinking it's the space.
And you're probably right because it's not the Power Stone for sure. I think that's the purple one or
Right.
pink.
Hold on a second, buddy. Which Infinity Stone is in the Tesseract? Space Stone, yeah.
Yep.
So she's basically, I'm not saying she's as powerful as the Infinity as the Space Stone, but it's gonna, maybe because all 6 Infinity Stones together give him like ultimate control,
Right.
and maybe him like trying to use that on her won't have full effect because that'll be really interesting.
It's almost like she's not fully the Time Stone, but she is, like the Time Stone basically.
Whatever she kicks some major booty at the end.
Yeah,
she's doing like Superman level
and
stuff.
plus, I love the scene with her old mentor, basically, where he was like, you know what? Don't even use your powers. Come on, give me a real fight, one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat. She was like, come on, I'm smarter than that. I'm going to just beat you with my powers and send you back to where you came from.
Yeah, I'm glad Jude Law survived. I really like his character anyway. I liked his character.
I did too.
But yeah, he's like, obviously my only chance is to fight her without powers, and she didn't. She's like, I ain't got nothing to prove to you.
Exactly.
So
didn't you kind of figure out I wouldn't say that's a twist, but kind of figure out that, they really weren't working with her. They were trying to use her for her powers. Did you kind of figure that out after the first conversation they had when she
It became really apparent.
Yeah.
But see, I also knew, being a comic book nerd,
right,
that the Kree aren't necessarily evil, but they're not necessarily good either. They're just a big empire, so they're going to do whatever serves their purposes. Normally the Supreme Intelligence is this big green face on a computer monitor, but for the movie, they did that thing, you see whoever you respect the most, which was interesting. Now the Skrulls, it doesn't bother me so much because it's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has its own lore, but they really changed the motivation of the Skrulls.
Oh, okay.
Big time. So, they've never really been the sympathetic refugees, but it was an interesting twist for the movie.
All right. So there we are. That was the big, our big thoughts. So we'll just have to see. And at this point, Zach, I'm not reading anything. So I don't know. I've seen something about Ant-Man and Thanos' butt. I didn't read that. I don't know. I don't even want to know. All right. I'm going to throw out some love to a sponsor. We're going to get to a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about how Mike converts mythological historical figures to D&D 5e.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today. The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions. Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays.
All right, we're back on Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. If anybody from the Discord's listening, from Morris's Discord, I posted the link there earlier. Big shout out to you. We got Mike Myler, who is a game designer in his own right, but also helps Ian World with the Ian Cider Patreon content, and then also he often posts mythological creatures or monsters or et cetera that have been converted to D&D 5e on the Ian World site, and that link will be on the show notes. But the main thing is that there's a mythological figures. I think it's a tag. Yeah, it's a tag or something on the site, right?
Yeah. It's at the top of, there's a new post for mythological figures / epic monsters every Monday, and at the very top there's a link that'll open up the category. You can see I don't know how many are up there now, like a couple dozen at this point.
It's a good 3 pages worth with a lot per page. I was going through them recently, and you've got everything from Grendel to Rasputin to Joan of Arc to Merlin to Conan to Thor, Odin. I mean, it's all over the place. So it's a really wide mix of stuff. But just to make sure that we have enough time to get into Genghis Khan, why don't you go ahead and I'm going to give the floor to you and step us through how you would create Genghis Khan based on your own historical research. You shared with me that you usually take quite a bit of time to research into D&D 5e, and I'm hoping that people listening can get principles for doing it themselves. So, Mike Myler, with no further ado, give us the Genghis.
All right. Well, first thing you do is, like you were saying, research is really important. I typically just use Wikipedia, and then I'll maybe watch a couple videos or view a couple other websites just to have a couple different viewpoints on what I'm doing, because there's, especially when you're talking about figures of myth, that's the whole thing about myth, is a myth is very rarely the same thing to different peoples. So pay to do your research. I did a bunch of research on Genghis Khan this morning. And I've also, read and stuff about him. He's the main character in that, what is that Marco Polo Netflix series that they put out?
Oh, right. Ago? Yeah. Zach's giving a big thumbs up.
It was really good.
My take on Genghis Khan, and he was a real figure, but I'm sure myth has been added to him, is he was a warrior who was also a conquering leader. That would be my take on him. But beyond that, I really don't know a lot about him.
I would say that he's like a hunter horse master that rose to the rank of soldier and then general and then finally global leader.
Okay.
So there's like a progression of skills and roles in that. So for instance, when he was younger, his father gets poisoned by the Tatars and dies, and his family ends up getting kicked out of their tribe. So they're just forced to live on like hunter survival gathering. So for a period of his time in his early life, he would definitely be, in D&D terms, a ranger, right? Or maybe a barbarian. I'm going to go with ranger because the horse master thing. Each soldier in the Mongol horde had 3 or 4 horses of their own.
Okay.
Right? So super important horsemanship. So I figure if we're going to go ranger, then we should go with the archetype for ranger that really promotes using a beast, the Beastmaster, and then we'll make his beast the horse, right?
Okay. So I just want to, real quick, I want to touch on barbarian because the word barbarian in history can be different from a barbarian in D&D. A barbarian in D&D is a specific character class that gets like a berserker type thing. So even though somebody is a barbarian in lore or history, that doesn't necessarily mean they fit the D&D barbarian class. Like Conan the Barbarian is a famous example of that. Like, that's a raging debate on how, like I would say Conan's a fighter thief, right? And I don't want to rabbit trail that. I'm just saying, just because it's Conan the Barbarian doesn't mean he actually has the class features of a D&D barbarian. And all right, so I'll let you have it back.
I'm trying to think of what the Conan build on the website is. I think he has one level of barbarian just because I wanted to get the Constitution score to your armor class thing. But that post has 270 or something.
There's a lot of argument. There's a lot of argument over that.
It is insane. I'm still blown away by how many people want to tell me how to do my job.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
So, but we're going to, like I said, I think we're going to go with Ranger for specifically because we want his horse to be like an extra horsey.
Okay.
Right. Then after that, you have to consider like what his career as a soldier was. He was like a talented warrior, and he goes around and does some cool stuff with like raids and winning battles and so on. But the real like distinction about him was that he took a different tack to like the way that authority and governance should work within the tribes. So typically it was very narcissistic, right? Like, this is my cousin. I'm going to promote him to, the Khan of his tribe because he's my cousin. Genghis, or at this point he wasn't called Genghis, he was called Temujin.
So what does Genghis stand for then? Is that like a title?
It's kind of argued over what Genghis stands for. I think I read a couple of things. Some people was like, it used to mean steel. Typically, the people agree that it just means it's supposed to mean great.
Okay.
Which makes sense. Temujin means
the Great Khan. Then
yeah, the Great Khan. Right. So he's still named Temujin. He's doing all this stuff. But he's really known for being a talented commander, and there is no like regular fighter option for being a talented commander. There is a thing that Mike Myler did on his Happy Fun Time Hour stream, where he made a 5e Warlord archetype for the fighter. So we're going to use that.
Okay.
I call them War Masters. And this is an important part of the thing. So all the mythological figures are built at rules as written. So it's like you could take them and play them as a player character in a game, and they would be totally legal.
Okay. But this particular thing is based on something Mike Merles did that hasn't made it into an official, like...
That, and also I OGLify things, right?
Okay.
So only about half at this point of the D&D 5e rule set is actually open gaming license and can be used by anybody for publishing stuff.
Okay.
The rest of it is behind the DM's Guild wall, the content wall they made.
Okay.
So we're going to use, for instance, the Beastmaster. I'll have to reword all of the Beastmaster's specific archetype abilities to mean the same thing, but be said in different words.
Okay.
Because you can't copyright a game mechanic. You can only copyright the expression of that game mechanic, i.e. the way it is said.
Okay.
So we got Ranger Beastmaster for the first part of his life. Then we have the Fighter War Master being like this tactical general for the majority, I would say, of his levels. And then he becomes a ruler, and it's all about like cunning and staying on top of stuff. And his life is actually like marked by a bunch of betrayals and conspiracies against him. But he does manage to, before he dies at the age of 65, unite all these tribes into the Mongol Empire, which his children will break up into khanates, like smaller districts that all control. And that spreads out into China, Korea. That's where it gets really, really big after he dies. But for that last part of his life where he's a cunning ruler, we're going to go with the rogue mastermind archetype, which for our purposes we have OGLified to being a genius.
Okay.
So after you figure out like what the basic path you're going to follow with the build is, you got to figure out the ability scores. If you look up the D&D 5e ability score calculator in Google, this...
Yeah, and you sent me that link. I will add that to the show notes, but yeah, you sent me that link.
It is great, yeah, chickendinner.com/5e/5e. Point by. And it gives you this nifty little calculator so we can figure out, like, using 27 points as for the the ability score rules in the player's handbook how to build the Khan. We know from a little bit of research that he is going to be wearing Lamellar, which in 5e is represented as scale mail. Scale mail is a medium armor, so there's no reason for us to give him. There's a disincentive to giving him a higher dexterity score than 14, right? Because he's only going to get a bonus of 2 to his armor class.
Okay.
So we can pop his dex up to a 14. Strength probably lose 14. Constitution, we'll try to shoot for a 14. He's very smart, so at least a 14 there. He was not actually surprisingly wise. If you look at his history, like when his dad dies, he comes back and he's like, I think at this point, like just hit marriable age, or maybe even before then. So he's just like a kid. And he's like, I want to take over the tribe. That's why they got kicked out, right? So he's not very wise at that point. So we're going to consider that his quote unquote dump stat.
His dump stat. Okay.
Yeah. And then so we can give him 14s in everything except for wisdom, which will end up with an 11. Good with that. The other part is feats are a good way to express like different qualities in these characters.
Yeah, I assumed that would. It's like when you have to distinguish a historical fighter from a generic fighter, feats would probably play into it.
Oh, absolutely. For him, we're going to go with. I already have him picked out. The really smart one is, I have it called brilliant, but it's called like eidetic memory or perfect memory or something like that. Perfect recall. That includes a +1 bonus to int, and then the mobile feat, because that was a super important aspect for Mongolian warriors. That was their whole advantage, basically, being super super mobile, because their archers. Well, we're not going to get into the nitty gritty, but it is an important one.
All right.
Mounted combat because horseback, and then superb aim because archery. Unfortunately, that does not leave us with a bunch of ability score boosts. That gives us a total of +3 to spread around, which I guess we're going to go with. Okay. So we'll give the +2 to strength and then a +1 to intelligence to boost him to 15, and that will leave him with +2 in almost all of his attributes, which is fairly superhuman. The average person is supposed to have a stat of like of 10 or 11 in any given statistic.
Yeah. At one time it was between 9 and 11 was average at one time. I don't know what it is now. So
yeah. And actually, now I'm looking at it, I think I'm going to put that extra 2 into Constitution, because he's going to be a 20th level character, and the way that you calculate stats for monsters built using NPC classes is weird. You don't count proficiency bonus in, so it's like we want him to have as many hit points as possible.
Okay.
We're going to do 3 ranger levels, because we only need 3 to get that cool.
Yeah, that was. How do you determine what level? Because I know you said that you're Merlin, which if we have time, I want to spend a little bit of time on Merlin, just to, that's a supernatural figure versus a real figure, if you will. But how do you determine what level? Because Merlin was above 20, which you're like breaks the rules, but he's
the only
Merlin.
One that is above 20 in the blog so far. Genghis Khan here, I'm going to put at 20 because he's so okay. All right. On one hand, it's ability, right? Like, what level do we need them to be able to do all the stuff that marks them and like makes them unique? So a good example there is John Henry, right? John Henry isn't necessarily super important in the grand scheme of things in the way that Genghis Khan was.
Right.
Like, we're pretty much all of us related to Genghis Khan. We're not even sure if John Henry was real. But in order for him to like beat this rail driving machine, he basically needed to be 20th level.
Okay.
Right. So John Henry's 20th level. Merlin is 25th level, I think, because the original Merlin could do a crazy amount of things. Merlin Ambrosius has so much lore written about him; it's insane. He's kind of a myth prime. So many myths stem from or deeply involve Merlin that I would argue he's a more important mythological figure than King Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
So for that, I was like, okay, 25.
Okay.
And then another 20th is Odysseus, because everybody knows who Odysseus is, right? We all know there's a word in English based on Odysseus that we use frequently. Yeah,
the Odyssey or whatever, right? So
Right, Odyssey.
Well, I would also argue that it would make sense for Genghis Khan to be 20th level, because 20th rules is written, Now you can homebrew whatever. I mean, you can take your characters to 1,000th level if you want. Go and do the math and figure it all out. But Genghis Khan reached the apex of what it was possible for him to reach the apex at the time he lived, I would argue. Like, he conquered everything he could conquer and rose as high as he could for his time. I mean, that's what he's known for. So I would say max level makes sense for him, just because he went as high as he could possibly go.
Agreed.
So you're doing, you said you're doing 3 levels of ranger and then
12 levels of fighter, because 11th level is where you get extra attack, and then 12th is where we get another feat, which we kind of need. And then 5 levels of rogue, because that's where you get uncanny dodge, which is an amazing ability. And for an NPC built with class level is very important, because you can't just declare this is its armor class. You need to have everything for it.
Right. Okay. So, and I also like where you're going with this, because any leader because there's going to be a lot of other warriors out there that are at their physical prime, and he's past his, right? And so then most leaders and kings end up relying much more on their cunning and their ability to negotiate, the court, if you will, than they do their physical prowess. So I think that makes a lot of sense that his final 5 levels would be in rogue.
So was my thinking.
Yep.
And then we're going to do the Outlander Wanderer background or whatever for choosing his character background, because although you don't necessarily, when building an NPC using class levels, have to use a character background, they say you can, or you can just choose 2 skills for the character to gain proficiency in. Okay. We'll do the Outlander one, because his beginning of his life is so tied to that.
Right.
And after that, you pretty much got your character.
So how many hit points and armor class and all that did he end up at?
His armor class, I just had scale mail up. We're going to assume he's not using a shield. So just a 16 armor class, not very high.
Yeah.
Hit points, 12, 666, 5d8, 20, 18, 24, 95, 25, plus 81, 91, plus 60, 151, plus 3d10, 16, I just say 190, no, 151.
Okay.
No, I'm going to have to sit down. I'm going to sit down and math.
But it's about
around 160.
Okay. So, and then you gave him what's the equivalent of the brilliant feat?
Oh, if you scroll down to the very bottom of the doc, you can see them all there.
Oh, okay.
I'll move them up gradually.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, he always knows when the next sunset or sunrise is, what direction is north, and he can remember anything he's seen in the past month. And then, with mobility, he can dash around. If he hits somebody, he doesn't throw opportunity attacks. Mounted combat is great. He can, negate some hits on his mount, and it gets a sort of evasion. And then with his superb aim, he ignores most creatures hiding behind cover, and then he can shoot super powerful arrows.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at all the stuff you did here. So now, assuming people want to go look at the actual stat block, it sounded like you were going to publish this at some point. Do you know when that might be online?
I could probably prep this for Monday's post.
Okay, cool. That'd be great. Yeah. So another thing that people might want to keep in mind with a build like Genghis Khan, we've got about 4 minutes here, I'm about to wrap us up, is that if he's on the ground in solo combat with another fighter, he's probably not going to be ridiculously impressive.
Oh, no. The whole War Master Warlord thing is about manipulating your allies to do stuff.
Right. But you get him on a horse, I would say before he became a leader, you get him on a horse with a bunch of other people around in his army, and he's really dangerous. And then also keep in mind that he's going to end up with retainers and followers. So if you try to get into a fight with a 20th level Genghis Khan, it's not just going to be you and him in the middle of town at noon, right? There's a lot of factors that go in here. So, that's why I like Mike's approach. He's not just making him a big beefy, I'm a fighter with a sword. He's taking all that stuff into account. So if you wanted to use Genghis Khan or an equivalent in your campaign. So we got about 3 minutes left here. Mike, do you have time, like in a minute or less, to just give us one example of a magical ability you did with Merlin and how you determined that? I was hoping to give people an idea, and time is time, but I was hoping to give people an idea of how to equate something like that. And if you don't have time, don't worry about it. They can go look at, yeah.
For first off, Merlin is supposed to be part demon. Like he's like the devil's son.
Oh,
it's weird. I didn't know that. So he's a tiefling and has some magic.
So yeah, okay, all right, I could see that. So right off the bat.
Otherwise, he has access to both wizard and druid spells, although there is a very lively argument on the N-World about whether or not he was a bard, because in the traditional sense of the bard, which is much more along the lines of like a skald, that's what people are arguing that he should be. I disagree. I mean, he's so codified as a wizard in pop culture and everything that I don't know why you try to fight it.
I mean, I've never thought of him as a bard, but I'll listen to anybody's argument. I'll go, okay, because you have to talk about in historical terms and mythological terms versus D&D terms, because sometimes to make something fit in D&D, sometimes you have to take a pivot that you're not expecting. So if you go to the show notes, I will link to Mike's build of Merlin that is on the Ian World website under the mythological figures listings. However, I wanted to just add a few more things, kind of a contrast to Genghis Khan, but to give a few points that he did just to give you an idea of building a magical character. He made Merlin a medium humanoid tiefling, a neutral good wizard, illusionist, 17th level, and then an 8th level druid. Now, he mentioned during the show that, he made Merlin higher than 20th level, because, it's Merlin, right? All right. He gave, a wisdom of 18, an intelligence of 20, gave him skills of Arcana plus 13, history plus 13, insight plus 12, investigation plus 13, gave him damage resistance to fire. I'm sure that's the tiefling thing. He's got dark vision, his passive investigation is 28, his passive perception is 19, gave him a background of scholar, gave him ageless. He just simply does not age, cannot suffer from the frailty of old age, die from old age, or be aged magically. When Merlin finishes a short rest, he can choose to recover expended spell slots if a combined level is equal to or less than 9th level. That's arcane recovery once per day. Augmentin Summoning. When Merlin conjures a fae or beast, the creature gains 2 hit points per hit die, and damage from its natural weapons is considered magical. He has the brilliant feat. Merlin always knows how long it will be before the next sunset or sunrise, the northerly direction, and can perfectly remember anything he's experienced from the last 31 days. He has the perceptive feat. Merlin is able to read lips. He has a war magic feat. Improved figments. Merlin is able to simultaneously create a sound and image when he casts minor illusion. He's got infernal legacy, instant mirroring. Merlin can use his reaction when he's attacked by a creature to create an illusory duplicate of himself. He has an owl spirit. Merlin can use a bonus action to conjure an incorporeal owl at a point he can see within 60 feet. Spell casting, just kind of list out all of his spells. He's got wild shape, wood's tongue. He's got legendary actions, basically his staff of power and his retributive strike. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff in here. And, as Mike explains during his intro to this character design, he studied a lot of different sources and documentaries and whatnot to try to do his best for Merlin, but Merlin's all over the place in lore. So, keep that in mind. You could build Merlin and it could be, a quite different build. So anyway, if you're interested in this sort of thing, I would recommend that you check out the Genghis Khan build and the Merlin build, both of which are on Eon World now under mythological figures and also will be listed in the show notes. Well, Mike, that is fascinating, man. I really appreciate you stepping through that. And I think there's a lot of people out there's some principles that you shared there that I think a lot of people can use to build their own things. I want to give a quick note. Game Goblins, last couple of shows, I haven't been reading their normal ad. Just want to let people know that they have cash and they want your Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and Dragon Ball Super cards, and they've got cash. Cash talks, everything else walks to buy them. And you can see their public buy list because they're into transparency before you ever walk into the store. It's updated weekly. go to gamegoblins.com and look for the link at the top to their buy list. They give you cash, or if you take store credit, you'll get a higher amount. So, well, Mike, man, I appreciate you. This was super cool. We got about 1 minute left. So I wanted to ask you, what is the hardest build that you've had to do?
Ever?
Or
just in this series?
The one that just left you like, I feel like I just gave birth.
There is a Pathfinder adventure called To Stake a Vampire.
Uh-huh.
And in it, I specifically was like, I'm not going to do Dracula. I'm going to do like a terrifying fighter vampire.
Right.
And that was...
Was that really hard?
It was hard to get down and make work and like cool and feel like it was unique. And then playtesting it was, they won, but oh man, those guys were like crying.
I got you. All right. Well, hey, I got 10 seconds to wrap us up. Why did the Minotaur go bankrupt?
I don't know.
Because he kept charging things. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks, Mike. We'll catch everybody else on Shane Plays next week.
Want a Twinkie, Genghis Khan? Say please. Come on, guys, jump with me.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays.